It was a cold, foggy night in a small, remote village, where the old 19th century houses cast shadows onto the streets. A group of 4 friends, Lisa, Tom, Sarah, and Alex, decided to explore the abandoned mansion on the edge of town. It was known for eerie occurrences, and recently, rumors had spread about supernatural sightings and unexplainable screams. That night, they wanted to capture the paranormal on camera for their YouTube channel. As they reached the mansion, the gate creaked and shut behind them with an ominous thud. The wind howled through the trees, and the moon cast a ghostly glow on the weathered facade of the house. "Are we sure we should be doing this?" Sarah asked nervously, tugging at her scarf. Tom, always the bravest, grinned. "Come on, this will be the best content ever." They stepped inside, and the camera started rolling. The floorboards groaned under their feet, and the air was cold and damp. "Wow, this looks like it's straight out of a horror movie," Lisa muttered as she filmed the room. Suddenly, a faint whisper floated through the darkness. "Did you hear that?" Alex asked, gripping the camera tighter. It sounded like someone crying. With each minute they spent in the house, the atmosphere grew heavier. When they reached the second floor, they came upon an old, dusty bedroom. Lisa spotted a decaying diary on the nightstand. "Look at this," she exclaimed, starting to read. The pages were filled with frantic, terrified thoughts. Someone haunted by an unseen presence. "This is really creepy," Sarah whispered, listening to the diary entry. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. "What was that?" Lisa screamed as they all ran to see. The hallway was dark, and their flashlight beams jittered over the walls. Then they saw it, a dark figure standing in the shadows, watching them before it retreated in a quick blur. Tom was the first to muster the courage to approach the shadow. "Hey, is someone there?" he called out, his voice quivering. Suddenly, a piercing scream came from upstairs, followed by a loud bang. The friends looked at each other in shock. "That was not normal," Alex mumbled, pressing the record button harder as if to steady his shaking hands. They crept up the creaking stairs, swallowed by the darkness. Every step felt like an ordeal, and the unease in the air was suffocating. At the top, they found an open door to another bedroom. The curtains fluttered as if moved by an invisible breeze. Without warning, the door slammed shut behind them, and the room was engulfed in an icy silence. Lisa turned around, clutching the camera to her chest. "We need to leave," she whispered, but the others were too entranced by the moment to stop. "We haven't seen everything yet," Tom insisted, his curiosity overpowering his fear. As they scanned the room, they noticed a painting on the wall depicting a distorted, grinning face. Sarah shivered. "That's horrifying," she exclaimed and turned away. At that moment, they heard the whisper again, calling their names. "Sarah, Lisa, Tom, Alex." The voices were filled with sorrow and despair, sending chills down their spines. "We really need to go," Sarah repeated, but her legs felt paralyzed. Determined to uncover the source of the voices, they followed the sound down a long, dark hallway lined with peeling wallpaper. They filmed as they went, and suddenly, a picture frame fell off the wall in front of them, shattering with a loud crash. Everyone jumped back. "Okay, that's too much," Alex shouted, and they dashed back toward the staircase. But the stairs had changed. The way was blocked, trapping them in the hallway. Another blood-curdling scream filled the house, followed by a pitiful whimper. Lisa dropped to her knees, sobbing. "We're not getting out of here alive." Tom tried to console her, but panic had taken hold. "We have to find another way out." The darkness seemed to swallow them, and the cold grew sharper, seeping into their bones. Suddenly, the shadowy figure appeared again, clearer this time. It was a pale woman in a tattered, long dress, her face expressionless. "Leave me alone!" she shrieked, stretching her arms toward them. The friends were paralyzed, unable to move or scream. The room spun around them, and the woman seemed to blend into the space, her ghostly form reaching out. In a desperate bid to escape, Alex ran the other way, followed by Sarah, who laughed and sobbed hysterically. But as they burst into another room, they found themselves back in the same bedroom, as if the house was a maze with no exit. The dark figure reappeared, and another piercing scream cut through the silence. Tom fell to the ground, clutching his head as voices shouted from the walls, "Help us! Don't leave us alone!" The screams intensified, and the floor quaked. Lisa, hiding in a corner, turned to see the wall split open, revealing another tormented soul. "You have to get out!" it shouted, and reality seemed to collapse around them. A bright light blinded them, and suddenly the friends found themselves outside in the garden. The moon shone down, cold and bright. Gasping for breath and on the verge of tears, they stood in silence, the echoes of the screams still resonating in their minds. "What just happened?" Alex muttered, still trembling. They looked at each other, the horror still fresh in their eyes. "That house is cursed," Sarah whispered as they stumbled back toward the gate. Tom glanced back, and for a moment, he thought he saw the pale woman in the window. But when he blinked, she was gone. Weeks passed, and the horror of that night haunted them all, but none more so than Sarah. The screams refused to leave her mind, and she suffered from nightmares where the pale woman called out to her. Her friends tried to comfort her, but as time went on, Sarah withdrew further. One night, as the darkness weighed heavily upon her, she sat alone in her room, shadows of memories pressing down on her. Suddenly, she heard a whisper, and her heart pounded in her chest. "Sarah?" Breathed a voice she knew too well. She turned and froze. In the dim glow of her lamp, she saw the pale figure standing in her room, its empty face gazing right at her. "You haven't forgotten me," the figure murmured. And Sarah fell into the abyss of darkness, the echo of the terror she could never escape ringing in her ears.